All right, hey folks, we are going to continue working on the martial powers project here that we've been developing for non-spellcasters in 5th edition. Give me a second here to check my signal, go through my intro spiel, and then we'll get to work. So hold on here real quick. Checking my signal. Check. Sounds like it's coming through loud and clear. Excellent. Let's see, hitting ideally here, and then we'll get into this in a moment here. Bop, and let's see. Arf. All right, introduction. Hey, my name is Phil Kearney. I create role-playing game supplements that I write and then illustrate and then publish online. I've been focusing my attention on Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition here for the past few years. There's actually a slew of links in the description down below to work that I've previously produced that are all extensive previews that you can make use of all the content in. If you're a D&D enthusiast, you can use to play currently. If you're here just for the artwork, there's probably about 150 illustrations across the lot of them. And if you're here for D&D specifically, all the mechanics down there you can make use of, whether you're a DM or a player. They're generally designed to work on both sides of the fence. If you like some of the stuff, you play it through, certainly consider making some purchases to support the growth of the channel. Otherwise, other ways we can support the channel is you can follow me on Twitter here at Phil Kearney. I post whenever I go live. I'll post that I am live on Twitter, so you can always catch when I'm live. Otherwise, you can most reliably catch me online by subscribing, hitting the bell icon, to help with growth of the channel. And so what are we doing here? On screen here, you can see the Color Mana Spell Points bundle, which is down below. This is a unified mana system that currently all the casters, half-casters, Warlock, artificers, etc. all make use of, using the same type of mana resource to be able to cast spells with. But what's missing from that is that martial characters like barbarians, fighters, rogues, they don't have a resource system with options for them to buy into specific action loops or kits or actions that they can take on a daily basis like spellcasters can. Spellcasters have about 740 spells to select amongst, depending on which kind of class you are, while fighters generally just don't get shit. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to build out a unified resource mechanic in the form of mana, whether it's color mana, elemental mana, or just universal key or whatever. The resource remains the same. It's just there's different types of power paradigms that you can work with, magic paradigms that we discuss later on. But the effort here is to have all 13 classes in 5th edition using the same long rest type resource, so they all have a common language about how they can expend resources to create effects. So if you've been here, we're on our 75th episode, so you can check all the other episodes in the past to see how the system has been accumulating. But this is the martial power system here. Oh yeah, if you check in the description down below, there is a link to my Patreon account. You don't have to be a member to be able to benefit from what we are doing here. Get out of here. So you can see the playtest content here on my front page. And then you can see the actual martial powers document here. It's a read-only document, but it has all the content from level 1 to 20. I'm playtesting it at my home team. We've been doing so from level 12 to now 19. I'm going to be firing up a low-level playtest for level 3 to 7 to make sure that feels right as well. But anyway, the point is that during this process, you can read along and keep up with me here in the document, build your own characters, play around with it, and if you have any feedback or thoughts, you're certainly welcome to drop them here on in comments on YouTube. Hit me on Discord if you know where I'm at. Drop me a message in Twitter if you're there, or you can drop into my Patreon and send me a note. Let me know what you think, what you're liking, what you're not liking, what you think needs to be tuned. We're just working on the core mechanics of the book right now, and we will continue working through this until we have a completed document. Once we do, we'll be sending it off to an editor to clean up, make nice, and it gets passed back to us. We'll do page layouts and artwork and then publish it online. The layouts and artwork You can see that on my morning coffee stream every day, Monday through Friday. We've been doing layouts and artwork for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration supplement that we've been creating. You can see artwork production happening on the Eberron Adventure that we do on Monday and Thursday nights. And you can see book cover and other art production that I have on my personal and commission channel that I stream on Saturday morning. So I'm here 6 days a week, 9 different events. Again, like, subscribe to get notification when I go live. You are most welcome to drop in to chat here and shoot the shit with me while we build. But today we are following up on the 2 weeks ago. We were building out the Path of the Giants, and there's I'm content with what we have. When we're building out a system, let's cut and paste all the junk here. If a thing doesn't need to be changed, we don't change it. We let it go and we integrate it. If we see an opportunity where like Elemental Cleaver here does D6 elemental damage, adds D6 elemental damage and converts your weapon damage to an energy type. Things like that. Like, for example, if we're looking at our system, we'd start with a D6 and it upgrades to a D8 at 9th and then upgrades to a D10 at 17th level. So like in a feature such as this, it makes sense to, let's grab this. Instead of just going, basically the text is identical except that we're converting it to be deals an extra power die of damage instead of an extra D6. Because you're going to start off with a D6 automatically when you gain this feature at 6th level. But this is going to allow us to upgrade that die so we don't have to add another D6 later on. We can just upgrade the die. It's not as strong statistically, but we're going to look at some stuff today that makes it stronger across the board and doesn't need the extra die of damage, for instance. So one of the things that when we had originally built this out, looking at giant power, the original class feature, we're looking at giant power. When you choose this path, you learn to speak, read, and write giant or another language. In addition, you learn use of druidcraft. We don't need to change that, but giants havoc. Your rage pulls strength from the primal might of giants, transforming you into a hulking force of destruction. While raging, you gain the following benefits. What we are most interested in here is the giant stature feature. And when you successfully when you make a successful ranged attack with a thrown weapon using strength, you can add your rage damage bonus to the attack's damage roll. I'm okay with crushing hurl, so we actually do need to make some changes here. Crushing hurl. And then we have giant stature. So we can leave crushing hurl as it is. You get to add your rage bonus on a thrown weapon attack. I'm great with that. I think that's a great idea. I'm happy we have it. We're going to leave that be. Right now we're going to look at giant stature, which I think is going to be where we're going to make a lot of significant changes here. So what this says is giant stature. Your reach increases by 5 feet, and if you are smaller than large, you become large, along with anything you are wearing. If there isn't enough room for you to become large, your size doesn't change. So that's going to increase our reach, and it's going to give us a size large status if you're capable of accommodating that. So we have a feature in here. If you look here at 5th level, we have our power list that we gain free powers. Like, just to remind those that aren't indoctrinated, it's level 1 to 20 progression. Powers are like spells. They hold the similar role as spells or like maneuvers or tricks, exploits, etc. But regardless, you start knowing 2 at 1st level. When you gain this subclass, you get, not only do you just get 16 powers across the course of 20 levels that you get to just choose from, like you'd be able to choose from a spell list, but also like a spellcaster with a subclass, you gain a kit of bonus powers that you just automatically receive for taking Path of the Giant. And that's in addition to the 16 powers that you have over the course of 20 levels. So a 20th level Barbarian would actually have 27 known powers, which will automatically include this kit of 10, and then whatever else it is you decide to stack on top of it. So you can notice here at 5th level, there's giant growth, which is something we developed probably about a year ago before we saw Path of the Giants come out, so let's go take a look at it. This is a second rank power. We know that second rank powers we acquire at 5th level, hence us gaining giant growth, sustained second rank power at 5th level. That's how that works. So at 5th level, let's see, no, at the way that this works currently is looking at the giant class feature. When you take the giant growth class feature, second rank power requires 2 mana. You increase the size to large. The space you occupy becomes a 2x2. Your weight is multiplied by 4. Your reach increases by 5, and you gain a bonus power die. This increases the damage that you deal whenever you make an attack, and the bonus to strength increases damage to with applies to melee weapon attacks. So when you take the size large, you get a 5-foot reach and your size large, and you gain a bonus power die of damage. At 5th level, we know that this is a D6, which will eventually upgrade to a D8. At 9th level, and then at 17th level, it upgrades to a D10. So it starts with a D8. You gain a bonus D6 power die that'll go that applies to all damage, as well as any strength ability checks that you make. So you make your normal ability check with rolling a D20, then your strength modifier, like say, I don't know, +4, +5. If you're proficient in whatever that skill is, great, you get your proficiency bonus, but then on top of all that, you gain the power die, which basically works like inspiration, that you roll the die and you just add it to your result. You add the result of the die to the total of your die roll to increase the overall result of your ability check. And you can see here at 4 mana, we can channel up to 4 mana starting at 13th level. That becomes, instead of large, you can become size huge, which occupies a 3x3 space. Your weight is multiplied by 9. Your reach increases by 10, and you now roll 2 power dice when you're adding damage to melee weapon attacks, as well as 2 dice to the bonus to your strength and ability checks. Add both dice and ability checks. This would be at when huge add. Let's get rid of that. When huge add the higher power die result to your ability check. The way that the dice work is that if you're improving like an attack roll, a saving throw, or an ability check, you aren't adding all of the dice together, a cumulative. Like if I'm going to roll like 3d10, I'm not going to add 30 points to my ability check. I'm going to roll 3 dice that are 10-siders, and I'm going to keep the best result out of them. Kind of like how inspiration, you can only use 1 point of inspiration for any particular task at any time, which could be anywhere from a d6 to a d12. This system, you could roll potentially 3 d10, and again, you'll only keep the best result, like a 4, a 7, and an 8. If you rolled all 3 of those dice, you get rid of the 2 extra dice, you'd keep the remainder, which is the d8, which is the +8. You would add that to your ability check. This is a way for you to be able to spend more dice to have a more probable success of having a higher result, but it isn't going to blow the accuracy curve of having something like a DC 32 being incredibly difficult to reach. If you're capped at adding a +D10, you're still going to have a difficult time, or at least you're still going to have a challenge rolling in these 30s. So it becomes a it helps retain that bounded accuracy that 5e is supposed to be built around. So, but let's look at the conflict that we have here. So this is a 2nd rank power, which comes online at 5th level. Yet the path of the giant is granting you the giant stature at 3rd level at a point ahead of when we would give giant growth. When we initially built, or when we originally coded this subclass to the martial power system that we're using, we went with no changes because there wasn't a need for us to make a change to what that was at the time. But then we had the conflict of, well, at 5th level you're gaining giant growth. Giant growth is a better version of the free feature that you're getting as a barbarian with this path, but yet it's not the same. So what can we do to consolidate language to make it a little bit more elegant and to have a bit more fun with Path of the Giant? So here's the solution that we came up with. What we're going to do instead is Giant Havoc is the Crushing Hurl and the Giant Stature. Let's grab the language that we have in Giant Stature so we can translate it. Anything useful here? Looks like a fairly significant nope. Reach increases. Okay, great. Giant Stature. Let's see how we want to word this. While raging. Why is that bolded? Get out of there. While raging, you can channel the giant growth. You can channel the giant growth power without spending any mana. While raging, you can channel the giant growth power without spending any mana. The power is considered locked while doing so, but doesn't count towards your maximum locked channel limit. Let's see. So that is going to give you, let's see how we're going to do this. While raging, you can channel the giant growth power without spending giant stature. You learn the giant growth sustained power. No, let's see. Let's word this. While raging, you benefit. While raging, you gain the features of the giant growth power. How do I want to word this? This is why I get paid the big bucks. You gotta figure out the texts. So while raging, you gain the features. So what are we actually doing here? You're gaining the features. You can channel the giant growth sustained power without without spending. You can lock the giant growth sustained power without, there we go, channeling any mana or reducing your max channel limit. You can lock the giant growth sustained power. Becoming size large. Hey Tex, what's up? Hey Beefy, what's going on, my guy? So, does the damage of the large size apply multiple dice or just the highest? Damage applies all dice. D20, and whenever you're making a D20 roll, it's going to use the best die result off of your stack of power dice. Damage always accumulates all of those dice, kind of like Smite. So it acts depending on how are you using the dice. It's either going to act like Smite dice or it's going to act like Inspiration dice. So it stays within the curve. But yeah, damage has less of a need to cap. But we are running into the situation where we're automatically gaining that free die of damage. So the Elemental Cleaver feature doesn't also need to grant an extra power die of damage. It can just simply convert your weapon to dealing other damage. So we are going to be able to adjust the Elemental Cleaver feature, but that's also going to cause us to alter the Theurgy class feature as well. Right now I'm just trying to code the language on this, and once we do that, we can look at whether or not we need to change anything down here. But I don't think we actually need to change any of the powers gained. Like even though you're gaining a free use of this, you can only do so while you're raging and it automatically locks. However, if you pick up the power on your list as a known power, you could also use giant growth while you're not raging. So you can, because you can maintain concentration out of rage, and when you rage, anything that you're maintaining concentration on automatically locks, or if it's like a spell effect, or if it's a spell that can't lock, then it ends because you can't concentrate. But powers allow you to maintain concentration effects without having to concentrate on them by locking those channels. And when you lock a channel, it cuts off mana flow, so your effective max channel limit drops. If I had a max channel limit of 5, and then I lock 2 mana worth of sustained effects, whether a single second rank power or 2 first rank powers together, that's 2 mana that I'm channeling, and if I lock both of those, then my effective max channel limit drops from 5 to 3. I don't have to maintain concentration on the 2 things that are locked, but that also means that I can't channel, like, say, a 4th rank power, because I only have 3 mana available to channel at any given time. I could channel an additional 3 mana worth of sustained effects and choose to not lock them and continue maintaining concentration on them if I wanted to. In that sense, like, you could maintain haste as well as like use a 3rd rank smite ability at the same time. You're maintaining concentration on the 3 mana for haste, and since the channels aren't locked, they're still open for you to be able to channel mana through. So you'd be able to use that open 3 mana to also like do exploits, reactions, maneuvers, strikes, anything that would burn the mana immediately. So it's fun to be able to lock mana, because there's a stack of sustained effects, which are basically self buffs, that like all the sustained powers are all self buffs. They all affect yourself and yourself only. They don't affect other people. So if you lock a sustained effect, you can essentially select a suite of self buffs that when you lock them, they can't get taken away from you unless somebody specifically targets you with a dispel, or if you die and that causes you to cash all your mana. So it allows you to stabilize and control how your character is capable of self-buffing itself at the cost of losing the flexibility of things to do. So if all you want are like a shitload of feats, which don't cost any mana at all, and then select up to 5 mana worth of sustained effects, you can lock those effects and then just have your feats available so that you don't have to worry about your mana pool at all anymore. Any spare mana that you have left over is there for you to rechannel any of the sustained powers if they get, like if you get killed or if you get dispelled. And then you dump all your sustain, you can have a reservoir of mana remaining that would allow you to rechannel and relock all of those abilities. Barbarian has to lock. No one else has to lock. But because a Barbarian can't maintain concentration while raging, we have this cheeky little mechanic that just happens to get around while you don't have to concentrate anymore. So it's a fun little workaround. It's a cheat on the system. When people like make a rage mage or something, most of the time what they do is like, while you rage, you no longer lose concentration. Or the selection of spells that you have, none of them include concentration, to respect the no concentration limit. But with this power system, it's not spell casting. It's channeling power, and it's for martials, it's for instant effects or self-buffing, so that you're building your own character chassis of what you can do off of your own efforts. So yeah, that locking thing was a fun thing we came up, and then it was like, well, this happens to work with Barbarian, so it was a natural fit and it works. So it's a lot of fun. But what we have to do now is look at how are we going to word this, and then we have to clean up elemental cleavers so you're not getting extra dice. And then we have to clean up the back end of it like a DMsGuild Colossus so that we're using the same language there as well. So that's what we're in the process of doing right now. Hey, there's text. So, does this version of the Barbarian compared to 5e Rage allow to begin new things to concentrate on when you enter the rage only lock mana? If you decided while you're raging, if you choose to channel a sustained power, when you do so, it automatically locks. If you're sustaining any powers with concentration, when you rage, those also lock. So anytime you do any raging, any kind of sustained powers that exist on your character will automatically lock. You can't channel more powers than your max channel limit, so you can't accidentally like over channel or over sustain things, because once you have something occupying a channel, that spot is full. It's just a matter of, are you going to lock that channel, or is it going to remain open for mana to be able to pass through with other instant effects? So yeah, so you can use it as boost. One of the experimental things we had earlier on was you could end all locked channel effects on your character while raging, and when you do so, that would cause a burst of force damage, of force magical damage around you. So you'd be rewarded to lock on a whole bunch of features, and then drop all of them so you could do a nuke around you, and then start locking new channels down to rebuild your growth. So, but that is something that we set to the side as a potential option later on. We may end up just blowing that out to be a power that it would be an exploit that anybody would be able to make use of, instead of just having it devoted to the Barbarian. Anyone that's locking mana, when they release it, they'd be able to detonate around them. That would be considered an exploit that deals damage equal to the amount of mana that is released when you end sustaining the power. So a lot of cool little fiddly bits you can do with it. A lot of little levers and dials you can pull to build an action loop sequence using actions, reactions, bonus actions, attacks, and movement as you want to be able to build out your own kit. And you can either use mana, or you can instead just learn a shitload of feats that don't cost any mana at all and ignore your mana pool and resources, so you just have a very reliable character that's just that just has a lot of feats and just can always do what you want them to do without even having to worry about resources at all. So, but that leaves a big pile of resources unavailable. So if you're going to go that feat route, I always recommend you should just pick up some sustained powers that you think are cool and just lock them and then forget about it, and just leave any excess mana that you have laying around to reapply those lost sustained powers if they happen to get taken away from you somehow. So anyway, so right now I'm happy with Giant's Havoc. That's great. Giant Stature, that's what we're trying to figure out the language here for. So you can, while raging, you can lock the Giant Crowth's sustained power, Becoming sized large without channeling, you can lock the giant growth sustained powers. While raging, when you rage, you can choose to channel the giant growth sustained power without when you rage, you can choose to channel. You can choose to sustain the giant growth. The giant growth power. Becoming. Is that the language that we use? Becoming. I am becoming. Once power is sustained with 2 mana, you can increase your size. Ah, there we go. Increase. When you rage, you can choose to sustain the giant growth power. Increasing your size to large and gaining all benefits from the sustained power. The power. Gain all the benefits of large size listed on all of them as detailed in the description, as detailed in the powers description. This is why we hire editors to help with the words. I do the best I can, but I like to have a third hand to help out. Increasing your size to large and gain all the benefits of large size as detailed in the powers description. When you rage, you can choose to sustain this the giant growth power. Increasing your size to large and gaining all benefits of large size. Gaining all of the listed benefits for that size in the powers description. The power automatically locks when you channel. The power automatically locks when you channel it this way, but doing so doesn't count against your maximum channel limit as locking. There we go. Words. Well, hey Alan, how are you doing, guy? Just to remind myself, powers are magical in nature. Yes, they are magical in nature. This is all actually themed off of Magic the Gathering color mana. The reason we're creating this is because if you check in the description down below, there's a bundle for color mana spell points, which have been on the DMsGuild now for a couple years, and is my favorite spellcasting variant rule that I use at my home table. What this does is, using the rules of Magic the Gathering, it converts all of the known spells that are in the game into white, blue, black, red, green mana as per Magic the Gathering. the thing is about Magic the Gathering is that this mana that you're using to channel spell effects, you could, like, say, summon a fighter, like a human fighter might be one of the creatures that you summon in Magic the Gathering. Like, maybe it's like 2 mana, one has to be white and the other can be whatever you want, right? That's kind of, I summon a fighter. There you go, human fighter on the board. But that human fighter might have an effect itself. Like if you tap 1 mana, it gains lifelink until the end of your turn. So then if you tap 1 mana, trigger lifelink on that fighter, and then you attack with that fighter, if the fighter deals damage, you then gain you then gain more hit points. But it was a mana effect that caused that lifelink to trigger. So that means that even though in Magic the Gathering, all these creatures that are running around that have mana trigger effects, that means that they're actually channeling magic through them to be able to do these things. There's plenty of stuff in Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition that are magical by nature, like the giant itself. All these effects that it can do are magical by nature. Like the elemental cleaver, you bond with the elemental might of giants and their ilk, and you learn to infuse weapons with primordial energy. And that primordial energy is effectively mana or magic. So it's technically magic, which also means that it can be dispelled. It can't be countered because it's not casting a spell, and that's what countering magic does. But it can be knocked out in an anti-magic zone. It can also, like I said, dispel, or other things that can screw with magic in general can also knock out powers or prevent you from using them. However, you can spend known powers to, instead of learning these mana effects, to just learn extra feats. So if you want to be a mundane martial character and you're using this system, it just essentially gives you 16 feats that you can purchase over the life of your character, and leave all your ASI gained at like 4th, 6th, 8th, 12th level, whatever. You can just leave those to gaining ASI because you have a fleet of feats that you can pick up, kind of like in 3rd edition, except there's no real glut. Like all the feats are pretty good feats, right? So there you go. But yes, it is effectively hey Hornetico, it is effectively magic, but it's not casting. You don't have to have your hands free. You don't have to say anything. But if we go down into the system here, Barf, we'll look at just a quick, and again, this if you go in the description down below and you click on the Patreon link, you don't have to be a Patreon. You can access this information as a read-only document and just play along with me and mess around with it yourself and give me some feedback if you want. But here's how we're looking at martial powers. There's the 5 disciplines of exploits, maneuvers, reactions, strikes, and sustained powers. If we float down here, locking, sustained powers, range of effects, targeting powers, duplicating effects, visual effects, and awareness. So channeling powers isn't the same as casting spells. There are no verbal, somatic, or material components. This is the same as monks, like Way of the 4 Elements, or the Shadow Monk casting spells. They're disciplines. They're casting spells through their disciplines, which don't require the material components that a caster would normally need. Monks eschew all that stuff, which we do here as well. So channeling powers isn't the same as casting spells. There are no verbal, somatic, or material components needed to channel, nor do your hands need to be free. However, channeling power has visual effects. That's proper English, because channeling power is a singular term, so it has visual effects, making it obvious that power is being channeled and the source of that power if it can be seen, unless a power ability or feature says otherwise, such as the subtle power exploit, which is you spend a mana and no one can tell where your power is coming from or that you're channeling any. Invisibility spells and other effects that end when casting a spell or attacking similarly end when a power is channeled. This visual effect can be described as the player sees fit for their character or as described by the DM elsewise. Sustained powers do not have a persistent visual effect unless the player chooses chooses sustained powers do not have a persistent visual effect unless the player chooses to do so. Chooses, is that proper English? Chooses to do so. Yeah, chooses so for the character, and likewise for the DM regarding creatures, etc. Let's see. This visual effect can be described as a player sees fit for the character, or as described by the DM elsewise. Some sloppy English here. Let's look at this. Sustained powers do not have a persistent visual effect unless the player chooses so for the character, and likewise for the DM regarding creatures. Powers that affect creatures have persistent visual effects indicating they are affected by a channeled power described as the player or DM chooses. So if something's being targeted and affected, powers that affect until they end, indicating they are affected by a channel power described as the DM, the player or DM chooses. So if you're affecting yourself with a power, if you're empowering yourself with a buff, you could choose to have an effect active, like a visual effect active on you, like if you want, like this isn't even my final form, like Dragon Ball Z style. Or you can choose to not have something showing, like if you're a rogue, you don't want to be radiating a bunch of magic. That's just antithetical to being stealthy. But if you're going to hit a target with a power, like most of the powers that can affect other creatures are either instantaneous effects, or if they're persistent, meaning that they remain active on the character until the active on the target until the target can end it somehow, normally by making a saving throw at the end of the round. So if I were to hit a creature with a blinding smite, and then they're blinded until they can succeed at a Constitution saving throw to end the blind effect. They'll have like magic on their eyes, or they'll be with like little clouds of black radiating around them, or however it is that your character wants to express how their magic affects other creatures. And likewise, the DM can do the same. If I have a lich, like if I have a skeletal knight that hits you with like a decrepit touch that causes you to have your movement speed reduced. There can be like tar that drips from your legs and binds to the ground, indicating it's a struggle for you to be able to make your movement. And when you're able to succeed your strength saving throw to end the slow effect, you tear yourself free from the bonding tar, and then it dissipates into the ether, disappearing. So if you're affecting something, there should be a visual element that indicates that thing is being affected. If it's yourself, it's up to you whether you want to give that away or not. But the initial spark of magic to channel that sustained effect does have an initial signature of some sort of magic that people will be able to observe. Oh, that guy's doing a thing, unless you specifically burn additional magic, additional mana to channel the subtle power. And we'll go look at that here real quick for reference sake. Exploit is subtle power. I believe it's only 1 mana. Subtle channeling. When you channel a power, there's no visual evidence. You are the source of the power. So there you go. Super simple. That way you can't get accused of ensorceling somebody with power if you channel something that affects somebody, like confusion or some shit like that. So all this stuff is still a work in progress, and I love having these conversations because it helps me find little gaps where we should be adding things like this in. Like it's like in MMOs or action RPGs, it's good to know there's a condition effect on your character. there should be some sort of condition timer on you and some sort of visual tell that something's going on with that creature that you're engaging with. It's being affected somehow. So like a DM can be using those visual cues on sustained powers that their foe may have. Like if you've got a goblin that has giant growth on it, you may see like a shadow of its true self inside the frame of the giant stature that it's taking, letting you know that those little wisps of energy that are causing it to be larger is actually a channeled effect. That if you can cut through, you can reduce that goblin back down to its normal small size, for instance. I'm not a big fan of converting MMO mechanics or like action RPG mechanics into D&D because a lot of times there's a lot of RNG and like processing that a computer can do automatically that actually requires meat space in our brain to be processing. Like for example, if there's a bounce effect, like an ongoing bounce effect, each round, like a contagion, like if I hit you with a contagion, next round, if you fail your saving throw, then all creatures within 10 feet of you are also affected with the contagion. And it will continue to cascade for 5 rounds. At the end of that time, all creatures that are affected with the contagion are poisoned and take like an extra, I don't know, 3 power dice worth of damage, right? That's a pain, that's a cool power, but it's a pain in the ass to process because it's requiring you to continuously add different effects to different creatures, make multiple saving throws across the board for anything that could be affected. Like a fireball is different. You throw a die, and then you just look at the modifiers for all the creatures that are on that die. If everyone passed, great. If everyone failed, fuck them. You know, or if you really wanted to, you could throw a separate die for each creature inside of a fireball, calculating individual saving throws for each of them. But a fast DM is just going to throw a 20-sided die, and if that die just automatically matches or exceeds the DC of the character that threw the fireball, you know everything passed. You don't have to sweat it. If it's like on the line, then you can just look at like, do any of these creatures have a higher save bonus against, a dex bonus against fireballs and stuff like that? Then maybe those would succeed while the rest of them fail. Like, you don't want to add processing time to the DM or the players because that's what creates lag in combat. It's not cool descriptions. It's not knowing what to do or how to properly process the effect. Like, I want to hit everybody with a color spray. Great. What does color spray do? I don't know. Let's look it up for 3 minutes so that we know what the stupid first level spell is supposed to be able to do that we should know right off the cuff. So the more simple you keep your effects and your processing, the faster you can roll from one character to another. The more the system is fun to use and is then instead looked at as a benefit. What can we do to help up our game as a team? Because the lag on the system is minimal, it's inviting for you to want to use it. A lot of new designers that are coming first from video games into the ttrpg game space often have overly complicated mechanics that are difficult to process like that. So a lot of times when people ask me to look at something, that'll be the first thing I look at. How much drag is this going to cause the DM to use? Which is why when we look at the stuff at the bottom of the document where it looks at like kits, like power kits to add to creatures, it's like you can use this once a round, you can use this at will, you can use this once per encounter. Like you have those 3 categories of things to do, which are easy to check off while you're processing things. So same sort of thing. Like if you want to add power, it is an added step that you have to think about. But if the end result is a net gain in entertainment, challenge, and variety in your campaign, keeping the players interested, that is a net gain, even if the mechanic itself causes drag. But something with excessive drag, like that contagion idea, it's too much drag to be practical for use. If a computer was processing it, it would just automatically be rolling that out at the beginning of the round. Who all is affected, how much damage did they take, how many people are poisoned, no problem. But that's a shitload of work for you at the tables. That's why we don't have that contagion power as an option. I am supposed to have a timer going, and I don't. I'm like, why have I not taken a drink of water? It's because we're already fucking 50 minutes into this. Super due. So I got about 40 minutes left. So let's keep at this. Hey, there's text. Let's catch up on the text. So managed to get to your ttrpg. Hey, nice, man. You just got to gather some people to play test. Congratulations. I actually like color spray, though. That's because I'm a sucker for those randomized and color themed spells. Yeah, but it's a good example, right? So what are we doing? We are integrating the giant havoc, the giant stature. So when you rage, you can choose to sustain the giant growth power, increasing your size to large and gaining all of the listed benefits for that size in the power's description. The power automatically locks when you channel it this way. Automatically locks when you channel it this way, but doing so doesn't count against your maximum channel limit. You cannot channel giant growth if you are not raging until you cannot channel giant growth this way if you are not raging, but you can gain the sustained power. But you can choose to learn. The power at 5th level. How to word this? Because you're automatically going to get it at 5th level. So how do I word that? You cannot channel giant growth this way if you are not raging, but at 5th level you gain this power, giant growth, as a bonus, and you can channel mana to sustain or lock it while not raging as normal. That's shit language, but it works for now. So, Elemental Cleaver. You bond with the elements, the elemental might of giants and their ilk. Your bond with the elemental might of giants and their ilk grows, and you learn to infuse weapons with primordial energy. When you enter your rage, you can infuse one weapon of your choice that you're holding. We're going to change that. When you enter your rage, you can infuse any weapons that you are holding with one of the following damage types. While you wield the infused weapons during your rage, the weapon's damage type, you can deal you can choose the weapon's damage type, you can choose to change the weapon's damage type to the chosen type. God, that's so clumsy. Choose to change the weapon's damage to the chosen type when it hits. You're already getting a free die of damage when you oversize. The way it's written is you get large size at 3rd level, and at 6th level you begin channeling you deal extra damage when you hit. The way that this is working is you're getting extra damage and the giant growth feature all together at the same time at 3rd level. So I'm not going to double dip the dice. You're only getting the die upgrade once, and that die will upgrade to a D10 eventually at 17th level. So all we're doing here is allowing you to convert all your weapon damage to the type of damage that you're choosing. So in addition, the weapon gains the throne property. In addition, any melee weapons you wield gain the thrown property with a normal range of 20 feet and a long range of 60 feet. If you throw the weapon, it reappears in your hand the instant after it hits or misses a target. And the infused weapon's benefits are suppressed when a creature other than you wields it. While raging and holding the infused weapon, you can use a bonus action. There you go. While raging and holding the infused weapon, when you enter a rage, you can infuse. Okay, there you go. Good. And you can use a bonus action to change the infused weapon's current damage type to a different one from the above damage types. There we go. That resolves that. I am now happy with how that sits. That resolves elemental cleaver. That resolves the giant stature at 5th level. You then gain the giant growth power on your own, which means you don't have to be raging to sustain giant's growth, but you do automatically gain it, and it automatically locks without taking away from your channel limit when you rage. So this is going to allow you to do it outside of rage if you need to, which comes in handy. But it will cost you mana to do so. Having the mana resource system allows us to do that. You get it for free while you're raging. It'll cost you mana if you're not. Beep, 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 beep. Elemental resistance, giant growth. Yeah. Cool. So let's keep kicking through here. Let's look at Mighty Impel again, just to make sure we have our heads screwed on straight. Mighty Impel. 10th level, Path of Giant. Your connection to giant strength now allows you to hurl both enemies, allies and enemies on the battlefield as a bonus action while raging. You can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet of yourself. An unwilling creature must succeed a saving throw. Blah. And then we have... So we have the Mighty Impel feature, but we also have Disrupting Dismissing Powers, Forced Movement. Various powers such as the Shunt Maneuver and Thundering Strike forces... various powers such as the Shunt Maneuver and Thundering Strike power force the target to move as part of the effect. When a creature that is forced to move collides with an object or creature of equal size or larger, during forced movement, any remaining movement ends and the target takes d6 falling damage per 10 feet moved before collision and is knocked prone at its current location. If the target collides with a creature equal to or smaller in size, it must make a dexterity or a strength or dexterity saving throw. Failing equals prone. So if you hit something that's as big or bigger than you, of larger size, if you hit an object or creature of larger size, reinforced movement. If you hit a target that is the same, if the target collides with a creature equal or smaller in size, it must make a strength or dexterity save and then fail on pro. So if you hit something that's bigger than you, you're automatically going to take damage and you're automatically going to get proned. If it's the same or smaller size, you don't take damage and you potentially are knocked prone. So if at the end of the forced movement, the target isn't on a surface or a liquid that can support it and the creature can't fly, the creature falls, potentially taking additional damage. There you go. So this resolves that question about why the hell can you throw something and it's not going to take damage versus how can I just alley-oop somebody and they don't take damage? Well, you can, if it's forced movement, that is forced to move, collide with an object. So we have the Mighty Impel feature here. You can choose one medium or smaller creature within your reach and move it to an unoccupied space you can see within 30 feet. An unwilling creature must, if at the end of this movement, the thrown creature isn't on a surface or liquid that can support it, the creature falls, taking damage as normal and landing prone. The creature falls, taking additional damage. and is, how do they word that? And it's prone. There you go. So we have multiple force effects. That takes care of that. Let's go back to our ability. Mighty Impel, no changes. For now, we're going to go with no changes, comma, C, forced movement, rules, in the channeling powers section below. Allies thrown using the Mighty Impel feature. Yeah, you know what? Honestly, if you pick up your friend and you throw them against the wall, they're gonna fucking take damage. So I'm going to be unapologetic about that. You could, I mean, with this, you could throw somebody across the room and they're not going to take damage if you throw them to a location that's on the ground they can stand on. They won't take falling damage. It's when you throw something, like if you're going to throw an enemy, you're probably going to want to throw that enemy into something that's going to hurt them. If it's an ally, you're going to throw them to a position where they can alley-oop and land and then do whatever it is that they want to do from there. So I think we're covered in dealing, having forced movement damage effects. When a creature that is forced to move collides with an object or creature of larger size during forced movement, any remaining movement ends and the target takes d6 falling damage per 10 feet moved before collision and is not prone at its current location and is not prone. There. So if you choose to throw an enemy or an ally to a location that is unto itself safe, neither one of them will take damage. But at the same time, you can do all sorts of stuff to throw a creature that you don't like into horrible circumstances, even if it's just straight up, so that they'll fall back down. That is also legit. Or, off a ledge or some shit like that. Cool, I am now happy with that. So, now we are down to the Demiurgic Colossus. Let's look at what that is. Let me make sure I'm caught up on my text. Yeah, good. Hopefully folks are having fun with this. Let's see. So, 14th level, Path of the Giant feature. The primordial power of your rage intensifies when you rage. Your reach now increases to 10 feet. Your size can increase to huge. And you can now use the Mighty Impel to move creatures that are large or smaller. In addition, the extra damage dealt by your Elemental Cleaver feature increases to 2d6. So, primordial power of your rage intensifies. When you rage, you reach. The primordial power of your rage intensifies. When you rage, you can now. When you rage, you can choose to sustain the giant growth power. When you rage, you can now choose when you rage, you can choose. Okay, so the primordial power of your rage intensifies. When you rage, you can now choose to sustain the giant growth power, increasing your size to huge and gaining all of the listed benefits for that size in the power's description. The power automatically locks when you channel it this way, but doing so doesn't count against your maximal channel limit. In addition, there we go. In addition, or rather, furthermore, You can now use your Mighty Impel to move creatures that are large or smaller. There, that caps that. We automatically gain. Scroll down here to the giant growth, sustained power. Bam. 2, 3x3 size, weights times 9, reaches plus 10, 2 power dice. So you're automatically going to deal an extra 2 power dice of damage. And at 14th level, you're currently throwing d8s. So you're going to roll 2d8 damage when you do this. And you can roll 2d8 whenever you make a bonus, whenever you make a increased damage and increased damage and yeah, we'll just stick with that. And bonus to strength ability check. So huge size, 2 dice. You keep the best one for your strength ability check because that's how exploits work. As an exploit. Applies to melee weapon attacks. When huge, add both dice. When huge, add the higher power die result to your ability check as an exploit. There you go. That's good. That is good. So that class that finishes off the class feature, and then up here, at 5th level, we know that we gain giant growth with sustain 2. By 17th level, we gain efficient power, which drops the cost of giant growth from 2 to 1. But kicker effects, like this has, this is a kicker effect. You have the base mana cost, and then you have a kicker. There are a few things in here that have kicker effects that do greater benefits at a specific mana cost. Those kicker effects can't be reduced in cost. So, that resolves that. Right, revival, that's a good one. Cool. I think I am pretty happy with this at this point. We are now over an hour in. So I'm just going to go ahead and kill off this document. This caps all of the Barbarian class feature, all the Barbarian subclasses that are in any of the Wizards of the Coast published content. So that finishes off Barbarian. And now we get to move on from the Barbarian into Fighter. We've already started on the Fighter. We did the Arcane Archer. We haven't done the Battle Master yet. We've done the Cavalier. And that's it. Oh my god. Okay, so we've only done... So, Alright, I'm going to hold off on the Battle... Like, the Battle Master is kind of the antithesis of this power system. Like, if you use the Battle Master, all the maneuvers, all the maneuvers that a Battle Master get are in the list of powers already. It's just the features that you get beyond the superiority dice and the maneuvers that you get. So I actually think this is actually a really fun opportunity for us to buff this out a little bit. So I think we're gonna, I think when we come back next week, we're going to make the Battle Master our next go-to. We're just going to flesh out all the fighter powers next. So we've got the Battle Master, we're working on the Cavalier, and let's go to D&D Beyond, and let's go to Game Rules equals Fighter. Let's see how many of these dudes we got. Hey, Dreams, it's good to see you, my guy. Glad you're here. So what are we looking at? Gunslinger, Samurai, Rune Knight, Purple Dragon, Psy Warrior, Eldritch Knight, Champion. And then we got the 3 more. So there's 8 that we have to do, starting with Battle Master. And then we'll kick through all of these. Eldritch Knight's going to be pretty easy, because there's like Eldritch Knight and Arcane Trickster specifically have special considerations, because they gain access to spells primarily. but you can blend spells and powers, like the paladin and the ranger and the well, not the artificer, but the paladin and the ranger. They get their stack of spells that they can prepare or learn. When you use the power system, a ranger, for instance, can freely choose between knowing spells or powers and can mix and match them to whatever your benefit is. A paladin, if you're going to use the strike system that we have, you have to get rid of Divine Smite, improve Divine Smite, and all the smite spells from the paladin list, because this system is a lot more flexible. Divine Smite, as listed in the player's handbook, does more damage. It does more damage because it's calibrated around spell slots, which has a different resource economy than spell points does. If you look at the spell point bundle that I have in my description down below, there's a link to the universal spell point system, which addresses those inconsistencies between spell slots and spell points. This kind of like is a mental exercise on how the math works and why we would modify them. But they do have to be modified, so you have to sacrifice smite spells and your Divine Smite and your improved Divine Smite class features if you use powers. But at the same time, you're getting 22 different strike options. So these are all things that you could take, and the paladin just deals an extra die of damage. Whenever you use a strike power, the paladin's kicker is that it gets to deal an extra die for free. So, you're still getting the leverage, but it's going to start off as a D6 instead of a D8. It's a D8 in the player's handbook because you can only basically do it twice at second level, as opposed to like in our system, you'd be able to do it 4 times. So having 4d6 is weaker than, say, the 4d8 that you get as your 2 spell points, as your 2 spell slots. But as you continue to gain levels, the spell slots fall away and the spell points take over. So you have to have a 1-to-1 ratio under normal circumstances. But with a paladin, it would be like any character would be like 4d6 damage at second level. But like a paladin specifically, it would be 8d6 damage that they'd be able to do if they spent all 4 of their mana on smite spells. Specifically, 8d6 is a total of 48, as opposed to 4d. Sorry, at second level it would be 3 spell slots that you have as a fighter, as a paladin, which would end up being 6d8. It's either 8d6 using my system at second level, or as the player's handbook system is 6d8. It's still going to cap out at 48 damage. And I typically look at maximum damage, not average damage. Average, in my opinion, and be willing to fight me over this if you want, but in my opinion, average dice damage, and calculating percentage to hit to see what your damage per round is only useful when you're looking at how quickly can you kick through monsters at different CRs. It doesn't actually address what your character's raw power is when you compare it to another character when you're comparing it to spellcasting. I mean, you can argue me on that point if you want to, but it's if you're looking at how much damage can my character potentially do, does that make it stronger than this other character? If you're comparing it to how much damage it's going to deal to any random creature, you can shift through the 65% chance of hitting, so that's only 65% of the average damage that's going to be dealt. Calculate at 50.5% total damage. That's going to be what your average damage is. Then you got the 0.5% bonus because the 5% bonus amount of damage because of critical. That all calculates when you're actually trying to see how quickly can you mow through a creature. It's super easy just to eyeball what's the maximum amount of damage this creature can do with a power at this level versus how much damage can a different character using a different power use at the same level, to get a decent benchmark about how much damage is my character doing compared to another character. That's I think an easier way just to shortcut what's my actual potential. And so that's how I look at that. And from that perspective, 8d6 versus 6d8, it really is 6 or a half dozen one way or the other. But then you quickly escalate with the paladin into at third level you have 6 mana. So now it's going to be 12d6 damage that you do. And by the time you get to 9th level, it upgrades to a d8. now you're on the same standing as a normal paladin at 9th level, but you're going to have a shitload more mana than the paladin would have spell slots. So the mana starts to overwhelm what the spell slots are capable of doing. So you want to have that kind of downed effect, that reduced mana cost initially. So anyway, where were we at? We were talking about diversity. The Eldritch Knight and the Arcane Trickster, since they also have access to spells, we calibrate their chassis off of spells first, which could be replaced with powers, which is another reason why we don't have any any powers that are above 4th rank. There, you can channel up to 5 mana, but none of the powers in the book are actually above 4th. So that means under normal circumstances, most characters can have access to all 4 ranks of power at 13th level. The Arcane Trickster and the Eldritch Knight, they are going to have, as the player's handbook is written, they cap out at 4th level spells at 19th level, which would logically mean that they're also capped at 4 ranks of channeling mana at 4th level, which means that they'll still have access to 4th rank powers, but not until 19th level. I think what I'm going to do instead is recalibrate how the magic gained by Eldritch Knights and Arcane Tricksters will work differently, using the power system as the base chassis, and then modifying how spells they have access to will work instead. So we're going to work on the Battle Master next week, and then the Champion, but we're going to get to the Eldritch. Yeah, we'll get through, once we get through Battle Master and Champion, then we have a couple weeks for me to noodle on how the Eldritch Knight works, and then the Arcane Trickster later on when we get back into Rogues. So that's my plan. I'm out of time for the day. Anyone that's been hanging out, checking out this Martial Power stuff, I really appreciate you being here. Like everything else I have in the DMs Guild, once this thing gets published, it's going to be a 100% free preview, so that you can see what it is and decide for yourself after I share what it is, if you want to buy it or not. It's available currently online at no cost as a read-only document in this very raw form. If you go down here, again, to my Patreon account here in the description, it'll lead you to the front page. You can be a subscriber or not, it doesn't matter. If you just click on the playtest content, and then you click into the Martial Power System, if I open it in an incognito window here, you can see I can't copy it because it's only read-only. But you have the entire document here for you to be able to read along as well. So if you want to start playing with these as playtest ideas in your own campaigns, or even if you just want to theory craft, the really cool thing about this is that it has the same depth of theory crafting that so many people in 3rd edition fell in love with. It's incredibly flexible. You're being able to choose between feats and powers to be able to optimize your own mana pool, to be able to see how much stuff you want to lean into locking sustained powers. You can buy into efficient power to drop the cost of powers so that you can do more with your mana and have it cost less to do so. Like you can take a bunch of 2nd rank sustained powers and then dump 5 feats into them so that they all become efficient, so that you only have to channel 1 mana instead of 2. It's like you saw with the giant growth here in the power kit that we built at 17th level. You gain, oh wait, we're in the wrong one. Let's go back down to Totem, Storm, Giant. Here, 17th level, efficient power. At 17th level, you automatically gain efficient power to modify giant growth. So while you're channeling giant growth outside of Rage, instead of it costing 2 mana, it'll only cost 1. It'll still cost you 4 mana to upcast it to the huge size, but that's a kicker effect. Kicker effects aren't modified by efficient power, just its core power. So eventually you'll be able to drop, I mean, you could pick up efficient power at 5th level if you want to, because every time you gain a level, you completely cash in all of your known powers, and then you can reselect the entire kit. So at 5th level, when you gain giant growth, you could take one of your known powers and decide to just give yourself efficient power at 5th level and continue paying for it yourself until 17th level. When we give it to you for free, you then refund that feat and instead pick up something else. Like, I don't know, like Thundering Strike. Nope, you gain Thundering Strike already at 9th level. Like Shocking Strike, if you wanted, for instance. That's one of my favorites. It takes away reactions from characters. So 17th level, Shocking Strike instead, because you already have the efficient power here. That means that Giant Growth, if you want to be size large outside of Raging for the Barbarian, it'll only cost you 1 mana to do so. Incredibly efficient. Efficient power. There you go. Anyway, I'm rambling at this point. I'm going to be back. So that's it for today. I'm going to be back tomorrow morning, as usual, creating artwork and page layouts for the Spelljammer Combat and Exploration book. I'll do that. I do that Monday through Friday in the mornings. I do this design stream every Tuesday. Monday and Thursday nights, I do map production and creature tokens for use on maps for the Eberron adventure that we'll also be publishing on the DMs Guild. Saturday, I do personal projects and commissions. I'm doing a book cover commission right now for Andy Headley and Brian Holmes, Fallen Wyvern Games, and Old Goat, Andy Headley. They commissioned me to do a book cover for an upcoming adventure that they have for the DMs Guild. Once the Spelljammer book is done, we'll remove that from our morning stream. We'll then instead do Eberron Adventure Design. That opens up my Monday, Thursday nights, and Tuesday, all 3 of those, to continue diving into the martial power system to help speed up production of that, so that we can potentially have that off to an editor by maybe November or December, so that we can get that back in the new year, get the Eberron book done, and then focus our attention on publishing the martial power system. Add it to this Colors Mana Spell Point bundle for like a 33% discount. And but you'll be able to read it immediately if you want to. And again, you can use it now, so you don't have to wait until it gets bundled to start using it. But once we do that, that'll get us to just about when the 1D&D project is completed, and they update what 5e is. At which point we will then clear our plate, and we're going to redo all of these books using the new 1D&D mechanics that they introduced for the power system that we're building right now, the core mechanics, the tap on tap burn, the Knights and Tricksters modifications, the spell point Warlocks. Universal spell points probably won't need to be modified, but we'll see if it does, and if it does, we will. We'll keep the original 5e version in the zip folder that comes along with all the assets, like the spell lists, the color coding, the color manas, and the character playmats. And then the core mechanics book, all of these will be able to fold in. When I built these, there was only Ravnica. There's now also Theros and Strixhaven for Magic the Gathering settings instead of 5e. So when we redo these books, we can not only incorporate the revised color mana spell list that we created back last year to help create more flexibility in these books, but also we can fold in all things Strixhaven and Theros as well as Ravnica to have a more robust product in general. So stick around. We're doing a lot of shit. If you think this stuff is fun, like and subscribe. Hit the bell icon to stay in tune with what we have going on. We'll be back tomorrow morning. And thanks a lot, everyone. I really appreciate you being here. So I'm outie. Laters.